I'm so glad that you guys are here. Whether you tuned in for last week with the live stream or missed it, today's conversation is going to be for you. I'll start with a quick recap of that conversation that I had with my daughter Amber, how we can partner with our adult children and what they really need from their parents and what that brought out of me and brought up in me as a mom. And then from there, I just want to share with you just kind of where I'm coming from as a parent. And in this stage, everything wasn't perfect always. Surprise. And so we're going to unpack some of those things and what came up last week during that conversation with her, and what real tools we have in this season because of that conversation, and talk about what it means to show up for our adult kids. Even when feel a little messy, awkward, distant, sometimes it can be hard to figure out. So whether your relationship feels super strong or stretched, or maybe even just broken, I hope that this week is going to give you something tangible that you can carry with you into the next phase and season of your relationship with your adult child. So before we jump in to today's message, I want to take a little bit of time to talk you through some of the things that came out of that conversation with Amber last week. If you saw it live, thank you for sticking with us through the technical difficulties. There was an echo. So for those of you who are listening in now and missed it, there will not be a replay of that episode because of the technical difficulties we had. Facebook's going to hold on to it for a couple of weeks. And so if you want to watch it, Echo and all, feel free to go join the Facebook group and watch it there. But there were a lot of really good moments. And so I'm going to share with you the highlights, okay? And some of the things I'm still kind of unpacking, to be honest. Amber is such a wise girl, and unfortunately, I didn't always give her the benefit of the doubt. So last week was special. It was very generous of her to give that time to us, and it just shows the miracle that has taken place. So I hope, I know it comes off looking really easy, but I hope for you that are listening and things are strange, that you will be encouraged to know that God can do miracles, okay? All right, so today, here's those 5 big takeaways. They really hit home for me, and I'm just going to walk through them kind of like a journey, like what I used to do, what Amber helped me see, and then how I'm learning to make that shift, okay? So here's shift number 1, moving from parenting to partnering. I thought I understood what that meant, but as moms, we're so used to taking the lead, and we've done it our whole lives, right? And what Amber said was they want to be seen as adults. And that really landed in a different way this time, just hearing her say that, not just as your kid who needs advice, but they want to be treated as equals, treated as a full grown person that you respect. And, I realized, like, wow, you know what? I still sound like I'm trying to direct her sometimes by giving all of that advice. So when what she really wants from me is to trust that she's figuring it out, and trust that when she needs my help and my advice, she's going to ask for it. Okay. And I think that shift is pretty big, from giving direction to creating space for her to grow and for me to grow. It's that first real sign that you're growing with your child. Okay. All right. Shift number 2. This one's moving from protection to trust. And this may not be a place that you find yourself. I am a very cautious person. And so this one, it stung a little for me in the best kind of way. Because Amber knows I'm cautious, right? I like to plan. I like to think things through before I take any action. And often that thinking and that planning gives me that endorphin release that I don't even have to act. And I feel so good about myself. Like, that's how much I like to be planned and prepared. And so meanwhile, she's the one who's like skydiving, running into fires for a living, saving people's lives, literally, right? And so when she said, I know you're scared, Mom, like, but I don't want you to miss out on the joy that I have found from the other side of those hard things. That was like special. It really hit me, because I wasn't trying to hold her back by being cautious and offering her these cautious advices. I was trying to keep her safe, right? But what she felt was you don't believe I can do this, or you don't think you don't trust me, right? And that's when it really clicked. My fear, even when it was coming from love, can sound like doubt. So now I'm learning to say, like, Lord, I trust you. You're the one who's guiding her, you're guiding me, and the strength that you've put into us, like we're learning to say, I'm trusting you to guide us, right? And and it's amazing because it's shifting the responsibility on from me to him, which is where it exactly belongs. Okay. All right, shift number 3, moving from fixing just to being there. This one, it kind of softened me a bit. I like to feel steady. I like to feel like I'm being strong and supportive. And so Amber, she had just basically said, like, I don't need you to fix it. You don't have to have this big idea or plan. Like, what she really just wanted was those little things. And little did I know, I mean, the thing that she remembered most, and she said last week, was a time that she was having a rough week at school, and I sent her a pizza, like through DoorDash or something. And who even knew that that was the big moment she needed? And to me, it was just so small, right? And so, she just needed to be seen. She just needed to be remembered. She just needed to be loved. And so she told me, like, it showed that you were still there, right? Even when I didn't have the words or didn't need to have the words, it spoke louder than words. Okay. So now I try to remind myself, like, I don't have to solve it. Right? She and God, they have that. I trust her ability to hear from the Lord. I just have to stay close by. Sometimes that presence is more powerful than having the perfect worded response. Okay. All right. Shift number 4, moving from those grand gestures to just being consistent. There was a season when Amber and I, we were not close, and she wasn't close with her sister. Our family was in this complete turmoil and disruption. And we, I'd like to believe that it was a perfect family life up until this one circumstance happened. But when we started to try to reconnect, everything in me was ready to fix it fast, to get everything back to normal, to get everything back to perfect, right? But Amber, even last week, just said something that wanted me to slow down, that just had me in my heart go, right, right, right. It's not one big fix. It's those little moments that are repeated over time that fix things, right? And she's right. It was the little texts here to here, a check-in. How are you doing? I'm thinking of you. Sharing a memory, just no pressure. And so those are those small signals that speak louder than words, that say, I'm here, I care, I'm your mom, right? Um, and then shift number 5. This is from being right to staying connected. And this one got me. We all like to be right. It's in our human nature. But Amber, these were her wise words, right? It's not you versus your child. It's you and your child versus the problem. Man, like, that was like really big words of wisdom. So because how many of us, when we have hard times, we may say a bit of advice, we feel misunderstood, so then we have to prove it so that we're not misunderstood. Nobody likes to feel misunderstood. But really what she needed was me to sit back and listen so that I could understand her. Like, who cares if I'm misunderstood, right? Because there's seasons where, I was worried about getting my point across. I was worried that if this was the one thing I forgot to teach her when she was a child, all of the turmoil that she'll experience from getting it wrong will be all my fault. I really think that that's what I was believing. So, like, I had this internal drive that was like, I have to make sure she understands this, right? But I don't have to be right. And sadly, because I tried to be right, I missed out on about 2 years of relationship and connection with her, right? So now I try to talk to pause and ask myself, like, is this moment about connection or correction? Okay. And if I have to choose, I'm going to take connection every time. And I hope that that's something that you'll be able to learn to do as well, because man, our years here on earth are short. Okay. So after that conversation with Amber last week, I've been sitting with these things that she said and the shifts that I have taken over the last couple of years and the shifts that I'm continuing. I had to ask myself, like, okay, what does this look like in real life to make these shifts? Okay, so I'm going to go through each one and talk about, like, what does that possibly look like? Okay, how do I actually show up in a way that supports her, respects her, and still honors my role as her mom, even though it may look a little different now? So I want to get really practical here for these few minutes, because I know I'm not the only one here trying to figure things out as I go. Okay. So anytime that we can share our testimony, it's the power of our testimony that helps each other get through. So we are not in this alone. Okay. Tool number one, I want to have us all start asking ourselves, like, how can I show up without stepping in? Okay. This one has become my new go to filter. Before I say something or offer something or respond, I try to pause and ask myself, like, how can I show up without stepping in? And that simple question, it helps me take a breath, right? And it reminds me that my job isn't to control the situation. It's not to fix the situation. It's to remain connected and make sure that she knows she's not alone. And so when I lead with that, everything else tends to kind of fall into place in a much healthier way. All right, tool number two, ask before you advise. Okay, so you know how our first instinct is to, like, especially when someone we love is struggling, is to try and fix it, right? And that's just our human nature, especially as a mom. We want to help, we want to make it better. But one of the most powerful shifts that we can make in communication is to learn to ask. And this isn't communication with just our children. This is communication with everyone. Like, do you want me to just listen? Or would it help if I shared what I'm thinking? Right? That one question can completely change the tone of the conversation, right? Because sometimes our adult kids, they're not looking for answers. They're just trying to process a thought or feelings. And asking that gives them freedom to lead the moment and be in charge of their own lives, right? And then ask if they want help, right? And what we're saying in that one question is much bigger than that question. It's saying, I trust your process. I'm here to listen. I'm not here to steer it. I'm here to support it. And I mean, how would you have felt if your parents had said something like that to you, right? All right, tool number three, support without solving. For most of us, helping is totally second nature. It's literally what has given us significance as a mom. And it's what we've done since our kids were little. And, if that's where you find your sense of purpose, it's hard to let go of that. So I totally understand. And we've been trained to totally believe that our doing is what gives us significance. Okay. But this season, it invites us to retrain our thoughts and our hearts, right? To find healing for ourselves, to find a new purpose, right? And so it requires us to go and make a shift in our minds, to understand that our presence carries just as much weight, if not more, that we have value in just being than doing. Okay. And I know that several of us needed to hear that. Supporting your adult child, it doesn't have to look like fixing their situation. It can be these small, quiet gestures, that checking in. Like, I know yesterday was very emotional for you. How are you doing today? Okay. Or a note that just is like, hey, love you, like thinking about you today, or, sending a pizza when they need it during exam week, right? But it's just this thoughtful acts of service that reminds them that they're totally seen. And, it may feel totally small to you, and it may not even become this thought like, I'm going to be bettering our relationship because I'm going to go do this thing. That's not what I mean. It's just those mothering acts that we do without thinking that makes that difference. Okay. But those things, it reminds them they're not alone, right? That you care, that your mom is still in the corner. Okay. You're still there to get their back if needed, but you're just supporting them, right? All right, tool number 4. So, speaking of acts of service, this one comes into play right here, but learn their love language and then learn how to speak it. Okay, my love language is time, right? Quality time. And if you have forgotten what the 5 love languages are. It's a really great book, easy read. I suggest you go read it if you have the time. If not, I'm just going to give you the bullet points here. But everybody, it's kind of like English and Spanish, right? It's 2 different languages. And so these are 5 languages. And so if you only speak your language, but you don't speak their language, it's foreign to them. Okay. And so when you learn what their love language is, and then you learn how to speak it, all of a sudden you're communicating and connecting. All right. So here's the 5 words of affirmation, gifts. Okay. So words of affirmation, it might look like, atta boy, way to go. Okay. You did a good job. Right. Gifts is just sending a special gift that says, I'm thinking about you. Quality time together that may not look like, um, it's not necessarily time sitting on the couch watching TV together, which some people that is quality time, but it might be going on a walk and having a conversation. Okay. And if you are at a distance, FaceTime, Marco Polo, these kinds of things are really big for this. Physical touch, right? That doesn't really have to be explained, but hugs, cuddling, right? And then acts of service. These are those kind acts that come into play, like loading the dishwasher and that kind of thing. Okay. And so with little kids, these show up in pretty obvious ways. Because they carry their emotions on their arm, right? Their sleeve. It's so easy to know what they need. But with adult kids, life has changed and they've learned to compose themselves a little bit more under pressure. And so you kind of have to study them again, spend time with them to get that research in, okay? But pay attention to what lands with them, what makes them light up and feel seen, okay? So for my daughter Jasmine, in this particular season, as being a new mom, it might look like filling up her gas tank, babysitting for a couple of hours, or just taking her out to lunch. Okay. And so things have shifted, but for her, it's practical, helpful ways that just say, you're not alone. I've got your back. You don't have to be locked up in a house all day, right? For Amber, she's several hours away. And so for her, it's going to look totally different. It might look like sending her a funny Instagram video or hopping on a quick call or responding to her calls and answering the phone. Checking in with no agenda, right? Just to remind her that I'm thinking of her. Showing up for her speaking events when I can. Right? The key is to love them in the way they receive love, not just in the way you're used to giving it. Okay. And so this is what happens. You want them to feel known. You want them to feel seen. You want them to feel understood. Those in combination together say, I love you. So kids, when they have that, they feel safe. They feel connected, even in adulthood. Thankfully, that doesn't change. Okay. And then tool number 5, your presence, even from a distance, matters more than you think. Sometimes we forget just how powerful it is to simply show up. Okay. Your presence, whether it's in person, over the phone, through a small gesture, can speak louder than 1,000 well meaning words, right? And you don't have to do it all of the time. But when you choose to make your adult child more important than your calendar and your to do list, it tells them you matter to me. And that kind of love, it sticks with them. Okay. Something really sweet happened this weekend. I got to put all of these tools into action because I had a chance to take a road trip with both of my daughters. And it was just the 2 of us, or the 2 of them with me. We spent about 10 hours in the car together, heading to my aunt's house, who has been given a limited time to live. So we were trying to get in some time with her. And it was a hard trip in a lot of ways, as you can imagine, because you're dealing with all the emotions that come along with losing someone. But there was a special gift of being with my girls, though. They made all of that so much better because we did it together, right? And it made everything feel quite a bit lighter, even though it was a heavy and traumatic situation. And so what was really neat with using these tools, I got to sit back and just listen to them, right? Talk to each other, talk to me. I filled up their gas tank. I bought the meals and the snacks. We even had time because we didn't get to see my aunt very long, want to wander through an antique shop. And honestly, it was just so sweet. It was a gift from God, right? It reminded me that um, sometimes the most meaningful connection that we can have with them doesn't come from deep conversations or these big moments. It just comes from being together, right? And I'm just really thankful for all of that, especially coming on the tail end of the conversation I had with Amber last week on the live stream, right? And so now I know not every mom listening right now feels close to their adult children. And so I definitely want to address that. But maybe the relationship is strained. Maybe there's hurt. Maybe there's just silence. Maybe you're misunderstood. Or maybe you just don't even know where things went wrong. And if that's where you're today, I just want to say something. I want you to know that I see you, like God sees you. You're not alone in that feeling. And it doesn't mean that you failed. That's really important because, in fact, one of the most comforting things I had to remind myself during the 2 years of tension that I had with my daughters is that God knew that I was the right person to be their mom. So I want to say that towards you. God knew you were the right person to be that child's mom. Or your children, if you have more than one, right? He saw every season, every misstep, every mistake, every tender moment, right? Every silence, every terrible word said in regret, and he still chose you. You have everything that it takes, right? He knew that your love, your presence, your prayers would be part of your story, but also their story, even if the fruit isn't visible right now. Okay. So if you're sitting in that ache and if you're longing for connection that feels totally out of reach, I want to encourage you. Like, start with that small, consistent love, right? Those little things. Um, you don't have to even have a phone conversation. Like, if you are literally not talking, but you have their address, you can send them a pizza, right? Or just whatever it is that they're eating, right? But that might be it might look like a text every now and then if you can, with no pressure for a reply, right? A memory shared. Every once in a while, like every day, the photos from previous years pop up on my phone. And so sending that over and going, remember that day? What a fun day, right? But those holiday cards with words of love, right? Just those little things that say, I'm still here. You still matter to me. It's kind of like those old annoying pop-up windows, right? You're just popping up and you have to be acknowledged for it to close back down, right? So over time, those pile up and they start feeling safe and connected. So you don't have to fix the whole thing today. In fact, that would be a lot of work. But you can hold space for them and time for them. So if you're wondering what to say, sometimes it's as simple as like, I want to show up for you, but I don't want to overstep. Like, what would feel good to you right now? you know? And it doesn't have to be said like that, but just something along those lines. Like, I love you and I know things are tense. I don't know how to show up for you in a way that makes you feel loved. So please just tell me what I can do, right? That question, it opens up so many doors that have been closed for such a long time. And now I know sometimes we're even afraid to ask, right? And with good reason in many situations, but we worry that they're going to say no, or even worse, that they're not going to respond at all, right? And that's super hard. I know what it feels like, right? But the only way to move forward is to show up with humility, with patience, and a willingness to grow and to go slow. right? I really do believe this with my entire heart and being that it's not too late. Okay. And no matter how long it's been or how far the distance feels, there's always hope for healing, right? And it often begins with quiet faithfulness and prayers. It's not a big speech, not a perfectly timed out text, right? Because nothing is perfect when you're experiencing this distance with your child, but just a heart that's saying, I'm still here when you're ready, right? And most importantly, I truly believe it's God's heart to bring that reconciliation. So don't forget to stay in tune with him. What does he want you to do in this next step, right? He's a God of restoration, of new beginnings, of prodigal sons coming home, right? Not just to him, but to you, to each other, right? And I believe he's working in ways you can't see yet, softening hearts on both sides. Okay. So keep praying, keep showing up, like keep trusting that even in the silence, God is still writing your family's story, right? So, I want to thank you for spending time with me today because I know that these are tough conversations and there are not easy ways to talk about them, but they are so important. So, if you're walking away with your heart feeling tender or stirred, I just want to remind you that's not by accident. God is still working, He's still writing a story and He's writing your child's story. Okay, He is in control. So, if you'd like to go a little deeper with today's message, I've created a free workbook that'll help you reflect and pray and maybe even take that next step in how you're showing up in this season with your adult child. So go grab it in the Facebook group, Making Life Beautiful Again. And next week, we're going to be switching gears just a little bit. Still staying in the world of midlife, but we're going to be talking about hormones, how they affect everything from your energy to your emotions, and how to know when it's time to get labs done, right? So if you've been feeling off lately and kind of wondering, is this just stress or something deeper? Next week is for you. So until then, know this: you are doing better than you think. You're not behind, you're just becoming. And I love you. And so I hope that that's not the only time you hear those words today, but I want you to hear them from me. I love you, and I will see you next week.